an evangelism conference for New Zealand. Get inspired, be equipped. Engage Conference, reaching your world one conversation at a time.
Alrighty. So what things did you hear? Why do people in your congregation not invite their friends to come to church or to other events? What did you hear? Doesn't have to be your idea, tell the person next to you.
Afraid of annoying other people.
Afraid of annoying other people, so actually the invitation is annoying?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Sometimes it's just time.
Time?
Get someone and bring them somewhere. And
Yeah. Yeah. And when you've got small children already packed in the back of the car, it can be
we're
extra
going to
tricky.
fit them and it's just practical things.
Yeah.
You're serving in church, so you've got to be there early, so
Yep.
it's hard to bring someone. So
Yep.
yeah, because you're struggling to get there yourself.
Yeah.
Well, as the figures were said yesterday, regularity is 1 out of 3.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, true. You know, I think maybe people might think, oh, this is a bit boring, or
Yeah.
you know.
There's a bit of, I suffer, I don't want my friends to suffer.
Yes. Yeah, it's like fringe factor, isn't it?
Is that sort of what you're saying?
Not really, because I go to church. That's
Okay, I'll take it
just
back.
my Sunday. But other
Yeah.
people who come, what are their expectations? Are they going to expect something that will tickle their ears or challenge their heart? You know, and how do we? Am I going to challenge their heart so much that it will never come back, or
Yeah.
or we tickling the ears? You know,
Yeah.
this.
Cool.
But I guess sometimes I probably go to Victor Sunday and go, oh, I should have invited so-and-so because my weekends, I get busy in my weekly life. And,
Yeah.
But actually I also think that maybe it's a friendship evangelism thing, that if you need to get to know those people around you. And I live in a very rural community.
Yeah.
You know, we need to have the contact with the people
Yeah, you do.
before we can earn their trust
Yeah.
and their respect. So
Yeah,
that would be
totally.
good.
What other
There's
reasons?
also domestic home problems.
Yeah.
Because you've had an argument or
Yeah.
kids have been upset or something and
Yeah.
you just don't want to ask anyone because you don't feel
Yeah.
as if you'd be a great testimony anyway.
Yeah.
And then it becomes an excuse because you don't do it next week or the week after.
Yeah. Yeah.
My daughter was in youth group and she stopped going because it wasn't cool.
Yeah.
She was mixing with
So that's,
other
again,
people.
that doesn't it? I suffer, I don't want my friends to suffer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she wouldn't invite her friends to go to youth group because she didn't
Yeah.
enjoy it.
Cool.
No,
yeah. And lack of non-Christian friends.
Lack of non-Christian friends, which is scary, isn't it? Actually, if you think about it, if it's true, then actually there's a really big problem. There's also a large potential that they're lying to themselves. Because I bet you their neighbours are non-Christians. Like, you know, we've heard 1 in 6 sort of thing.
Yes, but I
So
mean,
it's,
the more urban you get, the less likely you are to know your neighbours.
yeah, true, true.
The other one we came up with in our group was the fear of rejection.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
Totally.
see that too.
yeah,
I think also they could, like, sometimes we run out of vision for the gospel as well.
Yeah.
And believe that God actually does.
yeah, yeah. It's interesting, isn't it?
Lack of trust in God or lack of trust in your local church and how
Yep.
they'll react when you bring people.
Yeah, exactly. I had
Perhaps
a,
also you expect from the pulpit
yep,
to do the job that maybe God has called you to do.
yeah,
You're afraid to bring someone because that he may not preach the gospel,
yeah,
or she might not preach the gospel that Sunday,
yeah,
but you're not looking at what God expects you to do. Maybe they don't preach the gospel,
yeah,
but you do, and you
Yeah.
can, and so you don't want to.
yeah.
You want them to do it.
Yeah. There's always I always find that there is a fine line in this. I mean, I do know that by saying inviting to church, I'm actually pushing into a particular area. And I do understand that there is still a need for us to be witnessing as well. But for a lot of our congregation members, this is going to be a first step. This is going to be something that's easy for them to do. So this is why I'm jumping on this particular bandwagon, because us as evangelists tend to find well, let me talk to you about faith reasonably easy. Reasonably.
I wonder whether there's a bit of a problem with familiarity in the sense that we're used to going to church and we're used to sensing the presence of God and we're used to all of that, and we don't realise how impacting that could be on our unsaved friends because we are used to it.
Yeah,
and if
totally.
it's not amazing that week, we're going. Whereas a not amazing week might be amazing to someone who's never experienced it before.
That's right. Well, I had a pastor friend of mine, Mike, and he and his wife had a couple come to them, and it's not relevant to Richard Hadley, sorry, I pushed the button accidentally, and then realised I'll just stay there. He had a non-Christian couple come to him, and they said to them, look, our marriage is falling apart, you guys seem to have well together, what is it that keeps you so strong? And Mike said, well, it's two things. One of them is, we believe in God, and so that has been really strong in holding us together. And the second thing that we found is our church family holds us quite close together as well. And he said, would you like to come to church? And this couple said, would that be okay? Now that was an interesting response in and of itself, but we're struggling. Yeah, that would be totally fine. Now, the week that they came, Mike had forgotten that there was a visiting pastor coming to speak. And of course, being Mike's church, he's sitting in the front row, so they came and sat in the front row with him. This pastor was supposed to speak for 25 minutes and he spoke for 45. He wasn't supposed to mention funding his ministry, and he spent about 15 minutes talking about that explicitly. Mike was just cringing in the front row, thinking this is the week that, thanks God, And he turned to them at the end of the service to, basically go, it's not normally like this, come back next week and you'll see what it's normally like. And they had tears in their eyes. And he said, are you guys okay? And they said, that was the best sermon we've ever heard. Now, admittedly, it's probably the first sermon that they've ever heard, but it made such a difference in their lives that God highlighted to them the bits that they needed to hear.
Yeah.
And it comes back to, someone said, trust in God.
Yeah.
We need to trust God to turn up and be in that moment. And for me, that was just like, oh my gosh. One of the other things that we hear quite often when we ask this question is they've already said no.
Yes.
And this is where I use Mr. Richard Hadley. Mr. Richard Hadley was one of our best cricketers, best bowlers, particularly on English soil. Had a fabulous moustache as well. And but he just was absolutely phenomenal at playing cricket, particularly in England. He took over 400 wickets, which is just, they were blown away by that and just really amazed. But you want to know how many balls he bowled? Tens of thousands. Now that for me is interesting because we try imitation once, we get a no once, and we never do it again.
Yeah.
Here's a man whose entire aim is to get people out. He bowls over 10,000 balls and gets 400 wickets, and we think that's amazing.
If he stopped with the first ball, he wouldn't have got anything.
No, that would have been a very boring cricket game. It's that sort of thing that actually, that mindset shift needs to happen for our congregation members as we go through. Sorry.
He's trying to get them out, we're trying to get them in.
Yeah, that's right.
Also, that may be how much we pray for those people.
Yeah, and again, it comes back to what you were saying before about time, thinking about them early enough, having all of that sort of stuff in there, isn't it? To actually go.
Are we asking God to say, would you put someone's name on my heart that I can invite to church on a particular,
I like you.
We're not.
You've finished half my points. It's great. It's exactly that, isn't it? That actually, if we're trusting God, well, then we go to God and say, who are you preparing in your life? Who this week we're running, I don't know, Alpha, or it's coming up to Pentecost, or it's Easter, or who do you want me to invite, Lord? Not who do I think I should invite. And wait. and see who springs forward.
It's the same with time I used to. It's like, oh, I haven't got room this week, so create space if you
Yep.
want me to drink something.
There's some basic stuff that I'm not saying, but it's yes. The other one that we hear, and was mentioned here, was that people don't want to be rejected, and no one wants to hear no. I mean, I hate it when my credit card swipes and gets declined. I mean, that's bad enough as it is. I always come back to, who else do you know that was rejected, that was scorned, that was beaten and shamed?
Yeah.
There's a large collection of people in the Bible that you can read about, not to mention Jesus himself.
Can I make a point here?
Of course you can. Just 1 second.
1 second.
For me, fear is a thief that steals and destroys. But it only becomes big if we allow it. And that for me is something that has happened for a lot of our congregation. And this fear of rejection, I think, is something that has triggered something here. And I don't know if any of you have watched Veggie Tales. There's a beautiful story about Phineas Fib, who starts off this big and grows to tower over large buildings. There's this one little pea tells lies and lies and lies, and they get bigger and bigger and bigger, until the stage where it's stomping all over stuff. I feel like fear's done that in a lot of our people's lives.
Yeah.
Sorry, you were going to say something and then I'll come to you.
My point was I do market research for a job.
Yeah.
And there have been times when I'm just getting nowhere. I keep on getting doors shut in my face.
Yep.
And it's sort of, I get one interview for every...
300 phone calls.
No, it's face to face.
Okay.
So I might get 3 or 4 no's in a row before I finally get somebody who agrees to do an interview.
Yeah.
And I was feeling very discouraged by that until I had a guy door knock me at home who was cold calling for a power company.
Yeah.
And he said he gets 40 rejections before he gets one. And I thought, I've got nothing to complain about.
That's right.
So 40 rejections is a bit like Richard Hadley's ball.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
I mean, in baseball, you're considered good if you can hit the ball 2.5 times out of 10. 2.5 times out of 10. You're almost all-star if you can hit it 3 times out of 10.
Yeah.
If you can hit over 3.5 times out of 10, you are Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, we try once, we get a no once, and we never do it again. Sorry, you were going to say something as well.
Yes, regarding the Veggie Tales,
Yes.
when I started having grandchildren, I got the whole set.
Oh, well done.
And they've gone through, depends on what they do at my house as to which one comes out. But they are very simple, but very basic. But why don't we show those in church? Just
For the adults, you mean? Yes, it's a very good question. For me, one of the things that I think is that we don't talk about our fears in church that much. And that potentially some of these things that if we actually want to break them down, we've done step 1, we've put them out in the open, but actually step 2 is we actually need to start talking about them. And it's almost Alcoholics Anonymous. We need to be Inviters Anonymous. Hi, my name is Jonathan and I'm suck at inviting. And you start with that place and then you work from there into actually, I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to pray and I'm going to ask God and see who He's putting on my life. Yes?
I think some of the stories too, like for me, some of the ones that have said no vehemently at the start have been the ones that have actually saying, come to the Lord later down the track. And if you don't tell those stories, then
it doesn't feel normal.
It doesn't feel normal.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that actually we need more. One of the churches that I saw embrace this really well, they got their eldership team to start doing invitation first. And so all their elders were going out inviting their friends. And after about a month, what they did was they start getting them up during the offering, going around in church or something like that. And rather than having nice music play, they got the elders up to tell their stories of how they'd invited someone to come. And it was really, really interesting because you get I went next door to invite my mate Steve and I chickened out and asked for a bowl of sugar. I went next door and I was helping him fix the car, or I was all sorts of random stuff. And then you get the different responses that happen. Well, he said, yeah, but he couldn't come this week and he's going to come next week. We said, da, 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 and they came and they just thought, oh, this isn't really for us. And it's really, really interesting to see then just how people in the congregation respond to that. And show that it is normal. That even these people that they put up as spiritual elders, who really, let's face it, are this much further ahead of, I've got a mate who says, I've got just enough of a mustard seed of faith to be a pastor. It's like, okay, cool. Well, I think mine's like a quarter, it's quite an interesting thing that actually we need to think about this stuff. And this, for me, is where we need to get to. That if we move away from the curse, if they wanted to come, they would come. And we move to this. If we invited them, many would come.
That's good.
It's a really simple thought process. And actually, it's a really simple change in language. But I think it can be really impactful. One of the things that I would say to you about this, one of the words that we've highly recommended that you stay away from, that we've discovered, is the word bring. Bring a friend. We found that bring a friend leads to guilt. That people feel like, well, what if I don't bring a friend? Can I still come? And actually, bring a friend implies that they're in control of their friend. And they're not. Not at all. So the only part that they can control is an invitation. So this really subtle change in language from bring a friend to invite a friend makes a really big difference. And it's something that I'd highly recommend to you. Just from experience doing this, we've found that bring is a bad word. Invite is a good word. And something that we would recommend. And I love this poem. If you accept a belief, you reap a thought. If you sow a thought, you reap an attitude. If you sow an attitude, you reap an action. If you sow an action, you reap a habit. If you sow a habit, you reap a character. If you sow a character, you reap a destiny. Now at the moment, because we've accepted the belief, if they wanted to come, they would come. I think in our churches around this country, and around the world, to be honest, we are reaping the destiny of that. Slowly to come. I think if we can change our belief structure and our opening thought, so if we invited them, many would come. I think we'll reap a different destiny. Oops, I've gone back to Richard Hadley. Oh, don't do that. Does that make sense? Does that resonate? It's been something that we've found, that actually if we can see people change this thought process right at the start, change this belief right at the start, then we'll see a big change. But it's not easy. And we're now going to enrol you in a 12-step program to help you do this. This is why I got lots of 12s. The first step is a compelling vision. And to pitch this, you need to be telling people about it. And what I'm going to tell you now, I must point out, is strategy. And the culture of your church will eat strategy for breakfast all the time. So this is not easy. But it's something that I think can make an amazing difference. So step one is vision. Does your fig tree have figs? Does your ministry have fruit? Are you extending God's kingdom year by year? Would you go in front of your congregation and say something like this? If every one of us invited a friend and they accepted, we'd double our congregation in one day. Why don't we give it a go? Now they did this in the UK as part of Back to Church Sunday. And they saw thousands of people come back to church and stay. There was also thousands of people in there that had never been to church before and were invited for the first time. And they've stayed as well. It's been really quite amazing. And I must admit, I'm setting you up to fail by doing something like that because you get excuses. One of the favourites that I get is, but we're an elderly congregation, and we're all friends. We don't know anyone. It's like, I bet you do. And I bet you if you prayed and you asked God.
That's it. That's good.
Thank you. Sorry, I thought it was a question. Well, they've tried it before. That's another great excuse that we get. I'm no good at inviting. Another fantastic excuse. And again, I'd go back to the belief structure that someone's put in their head is going to be the destiny that they have. I have a saying with my 9-year-old, your attitude is your altitude. How you think about things is how you're going to probably do it. And it's something that actually he's starting to embrace. So he's actually, he loves doing speech stuff at school. And that for him puts his attitude right about it, and he just soars in it. He's just made it into the finals for year 5, which he's ecstatic about. And I'm now sharing with you because it's something good. Anyway, and nothing is impossible for God. We need to replace the negative with a positive. The second step is that this is caught more than it is taught. So like that story of the elders doing it first, that's the sort of thing that needs to be happening. That actually, it flows down that way much, much better. Excuse me. Some churches who have done this come back and say, it was a waste of time. And I say, I'm sorry, what was the problem? They said, no one invited anyone. And at this point, I usually gently say, well, did you invite anyone? And quite often the answer is no. That's the whole thing. If you're not modelling it to people, how are they ever going to do it themselves? This is something that actually, as leaders in churches and as people that are passionate about evangelism, it needs to be something that we model as well, and something that we encourage others to be part of. I like to use things like, I'm inviting someone, would you? Or will you? We should really ask our congregations to do something that we're not willing or prepared to do ourselves. And be prepared to change that thinking in people and be ready for all the excuses. Step 3 is what I call cascading. People inviting people to personally invite. It sounds like a lot of people in there, but quite often it's great if the leaders of the church can then invite the small group leaders to invite someone, who then invite their small group to invite someone to, you see what I mean? So that it cascades down. And then everyone gets experience about it along the way and can share their stories as they go. And when you put modelling and cascading together, you get an amazing thing happen. It provides a safety net. Because if the leader personally invites them to invite, they can always say to their friend that the leader has asked them to. And it usually goes along the lines of this. I didn't want to invite you, but my pastor has asked me to invite someone. And I thought, you can say no straight away, it's totally fine. But just to get him off my back, we've got this thing called out, and I said, would you like to come? And it's off their back. But it gives them an easy out by having someone personally invite them to invite. Step 4 is the gift of friendship. We need to get over the attitude of saving our friend or being put through the trial of church. I had a mate of mine come to me and say, hey, I've got a spare ticket to the ballet. He said, would you like to come? I said, you've got to be joking. He said, well, I've got a spare one, are you sure? I said, well, I'm not surprised you've got a spare one. Who wants to go to the ballet? But because my friend had asked, I actually went. And it was okay. It was good. But it's that whole thing.
You didn't take your daughter?
No, I didn't take my daughter. She wasn't born at the time.
That's a shame.
But it was that whole thing of actually, because my friend invited me, I said, yeah, to come along. And I think actually that's something for us with churches as well, is that people are actually waiting for us to invite them. And our friends are right there. This is something that we've talked about a little bit during the main meetings, the power of story. And let our recent stories be our narrative when we're talking to people. Telling a story gives courage to the storyteller and opens up possibilities for the listener. What was that? Sorry?
Morning tea.
Morning tea. All right. I'll hurry. I'm almost done. Step 6. Who has God been preparing in my life? Like Samuel, quite often we don't recognise when God's speaking to us. But this is so important that actually if we stop and ask God, who do you want me to invite? To whatever it is. The fun thing is Sunday rolls around 52 times a year. So there's always something to invite someone to. Then we've got Easter, then we've got Christmas, then we've got productions, then we've got, you name it, all sorts of things going on that we can invite people to and be part of. But the thing is to ask God, who's He been preparing in our lives for what is going on? Step 7, practice the question. The person in the mirror is usually really positive back. But it's worth practicing the question and encouraging people to do so. Prayer. This was taken during a World Cup photo. He was praying that one of his mates would score a goal. But it was, the whole thing for me is actually, this is something that people who are doing invitation for the first time, they'll think that they're actually praying for their mate, but quite often they end up praying for courage for themselves to actually make the invitation. So it's a really important step. Step 9, you'd be surprised how many people skip this part. Make the invitation. Step 10, walk or drive them to whatever event it happens to be. And then introduce them to friends over food and drink. So that was, I'm sorry, I just jumped really fast for you, didn't I? For those that are writing. So we had make the invitation, walk or drive them to the event, introduce them to friends over food and drink. Now, I would say here, you also know the friends not to introduce them to on the first day.
Yes.
Just to stick in the back of your mind. And then, finally, step 12, assume they're coming back and ask them to come again. And then shall I pick you up next week as well? Or shall we meet and go from there? I didn't bring it in with me, but on our desk we came across this, trying to find a simple way that we could encourage everyone to be involved in invitation. We put this thing together called Glow Brightly, which is a little light bulb with a lampshade on it. And on the lampshade it says, I'm shining a light for, and it's got a blank space there for you to fill in who's the person that you prayed for and asked to invite.
An evangelism conference for New Zealand. Get inspired, be equipped. Engage Conference, reaching your world one conversation at a time.